The heart of the city of Aberdeen is built on top of a series of hidden vaults and passages. But are the rumours true that there are many such passages in the city centre? On Saturday, 30th March 1912, during preparation works for a garage in St Paul Street, employees of plastering company Messrs Scott and Sons discovered a brick-built passage that led into a circular beehive-shaped chamber built of granite. The excavations had taken place at the site of an old house, which was to be converted, when a large stone slab had been unearthed. When the 2.5 feet by 2 feet slab, which had been lying around 20 inches below the floor of the house, was removed, the vault was discovered. The floor of the passage was over 7 feet below the slab, and it was surmised that a ladder had to have been used to access the passage. A flight of steps led down to the ground, but before reaching the bottom there was an opening, the entrance to a brick-lined, domed chamber, measuring 10 feet by 8 feet. Water was pumped out of it. Then some of the men decided to investigate their discovery. Another chamber was found that had a brick-built circular dome, was lined with lime, and stalactites, a few feet in length, were hanging down from the roof. The chamber measured around 15 feet high and just over 9 feet wide, with a circular hole that had been filled in with earth and rubbish. A similar hole was found on the passage, but was filled in with water. A narrow short passage led to it from the central main passage. Planks of wood were laid across the floor to allow the men, along with their lights, to go deeper into the structure. At the far end of the chamber was a brick-built passage, wide enough for a man to crawl through, which led eastwards, towards where the old Greyfriars Kirk and Monastery once stood, at the extension of Marischal College. Evidence of soot was also found. It was thought it may have been used for barley, possibly to make illicit whisky. Documents associated with the house dating from the mid-18th century showed a mason had owned the house who may have built the passages and chambers. It was later bought by a city merchant, then a city excise officer. Did either of them know it even existed, or did it remain a secret until 1912? At Carnegie's Brae off the Nether Kirkgate is another underground passage, once known as the Dark Briggy, or at least an under-Union Street passage. Here once stood Benham's Lodge, better known as the Wallace Tower, a building constructed in the 17th century. The arches on the right-hand side led to St Nicholas Street, which once connected George Street and Union Street, but with the construction of the St Nicholas Centre, this stopped being an access route. The main passageway here supports Union Street above. Archibald Simpson, Aberdeen's most famous architect, built much of the city centre we see today, building on top of the old city, leaving its vaults and passages like this one in situ. The construction of Union Street saw additional passageways and vaults, which were still being used for cold storage into the 20th century. But during this time, the vaults were filled in as new houses and shops were built. The main thoroughfare, Union Street, was named after the Acts of Union in 1800, when Ireland joined Great Britain, making the new unions being known as the Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. The most interesting part of the street for passages or vaults is between the Castle Gate and Union Bridge. St Catherine's Hill had its top removed, paving the way for a new, flatter street. Where the Adelphi is today was all lowered, while to the west of this the land had to be raised to make it flat. Back Wynd, Correction Wynd and Ship Row were all shortened to accommodate Union Street. The Union Bridge remains the largest single-span granite bridge in the world, and the viaduct on its right is what supports Union Street. At the entrance to the Adelphi, St. Catherine's Hill would have peaked. Looking down Market Street, this is the site of a man-made hill. The old city vaults came into being around 1800, due to the sharp decline of the ground from the level Back Wynd to the green. So much so that the vaults had to be built, stretching from the Adelphi to Bridge Street in order to support the new Union Street. Correction Wynd, for example, passes under Union Street and can be accessed by taking the steps down beside St. Nicholas's Kirk on Union Street. On the south side of the tunnel, it's clear to see Union Street is 2 or 3 stories above ground level there. A passage also ran between Market Street and Haddon Street. The vaults had been designed by Simpson in the 1840s when he'd constructed Market Street, but these alterations ended the existence of Petachiside, a former name of Castle Forbes near Afford, as the thoroughfare, as the exit near to the harbour was blocked up. It was on this street that Lord Forbes had his townhouse. The largest number of vaults could be found on either side of the dark Briggy. In 1928, 3, on the side nearest Castle Street, were used for cold storage by the Aberdeen Market Company Limited, with the first one stretching from the front of St. Nicholas branch of the North of Scotland Bank Limited right across the street, reaching to the National Bank of Scotland Limited. The other 2 also extended fully across the street. On the west side of the old Petachy Bridge, the company had another vault, but it only reached 3/4 of the way across the street. Over Christmas and New Year, these were used to stock the likes of turkeys, game and fish. People above, turning their thoughts to their Christmas and New Year delights, had little idea they were actually walking over their dinners. The tunnel runs under Market Street, past the site of the now demolished Newmarket. The Union Bridge we see today, designed by Thomas Fletcher, had the metal braces attached in 1908. Originally, it was to be a 3-arch design, but Fletcher discovered flaws in its design after the groundworks and foundations were constructed, so he got the contract to build the single-arched bridge. Above the bridge is a Trinity Centre, which was built in the 1980s. On the other side of Union Bridge are more vaults. The arches of the viaduct have been covered by the Travel Lodge now on the site. At Windmill Brae, vaults have also now disappeared, but at Langstane Place a Victorian access tunnel was built when the subway cables were run under the streets, with the DC power coming from the city's own power plant in Milburn Street, with its ornate air vent, one of the city's most curious landmarks, just off Holborn Street. So what of the passages today? Carnegie's Brae is the best example of the hidden passages beneath the city. Unlike the myths that have grown up about numerous passages lying under Union Street, this is the best. You can also walk under Union Street from Correction Wynd, but most of the others have been blocked up. If you enjoyed this episode of Scotland's History, please like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, thank you for watching.